in startup land, there's an incumbent everyone is chasing, one or two big incumbents, and then there's two or three startups that that are, and you guys are obviously in the lead in your little in this category. The question is,
Well, then,
is there an incumbent? Are you a subset of what like these DSP data security platforms provide? And is there a risk that the cloud security providers could embed these kinds of protection and visibility options into their products? Talk a little bit about like the competitive landscape for a little bit.
yes. I mean, my whole take is we want a much safer, better kind of data-centric space. I want the cloud providers to build this. We want the incumbents to reinvent. And, the challenge for us is, can we still stay, the best? I think that's, so I think it's a good thing if folks try to build it. That's kind of how we approach it. But the space really is, as you described, there are classic incumbents. Like I think Imperva used to have a database firewall. They're now trying to rethink. Veronis has been doing this kind of things for endpoints. So they drop an agent on your endpoint and it looks through your drive for, it's like, again, like, so this was all like, this data-centric security vision makes a lot of sense. But these products, incumbents were built for a older world.
A different
Yeah, it
era.
was just hard to get to data. It was like siloed in database servers. You have to get DBAs involved and, install an agent. And
Right.
it's just like really messy to operationalize it. The friction, as you mentioned earlier, was just too much, right? So I think like they'll
And that's changing. That's changing now with not
like
only products like yours, but the cloud providers are getting a little better and better every year at providing some of these tools as
absolutely.
well.
I think on the cloud provider, so that's like the incumbent side. There's the cloud provider side. That's sort of the below everyone, right? Like their goal is to just be the tide, kind of for this lifting up security posture for everyone. But it's really hard. Like I do not envy AWS and Azure. Like you see, like our you know community colleagues from Wiz and Orca, they keep finding, oh, here's the bug of the month, and actually you can access every single Cosmos DB in Azure or whatever, right? Like it's really really hard.
They have bigger problems. They have bigger problems than investing in engineering for this
Right.
stuff. Yeah.
I hope they do invest, but again, they'll have to solve. It's not like 100,000 people that are doing it. It'll be a team of 20 or 100 people working on this, right? And if we can't do better than that, we shouldn't be around. So that's
On this on the same issue of competition and building this business, I want to flip gears and ask you kind of like a personal thing. What was the hardest part of flipping your mind from academia to being not only an entrepreneur but a startup entrepreneur in cybersecurity that's ridiculously competitive and that's like incredibly noisy? Can you talk a little bit about the personal mind shift that had to occur and what was the easiest part of it and what was the hardest part of it? Is there something in it that you still hate?
that's a very interesting. I think about that a lot. Just have this impression that folks think that academia and especially startups, like early stage, when you're trying to make a new product, these are very different areas.
Are
These are
different?
just
You don't view it as different at all. You view your researcher's problem solving as an
it's the
entrepreneurial
same. Yeah,
mindset.
absolutely. Because we don't know like what plumbing will work. What is the full workflow? Okay, I found some problems. What is the full? I can imagine that sure you will want to do this AIML or SIMSOAR or whatever, but turns out it's not the case. And turns out when you actually really probe the customers and understand the context they operate in, they have very strong and good incentives to do something else, right? It's just like
Right.
this act of like you make a hypothesis, but you test it really quickly, fail as fast as you can, and just be super open. And like when you're in research, you get really well-meaning people giving you really harsh feedback all the time. Harsh as in like you are wrong, kind of. It's not meant harshly. It's just like, yeah, you were wrong. Yeah,
Blunt. Right.
all the time. And this is perfect for startups. You just get told by everyone across the stack that like, yeah, this is interesting, but here are the 20 big problems. And then you have to sift through which of those 20 are fundamental and which are just artifactual. You just conveyed it wrong. Sort of sifting through and make,
The pressures are different though. The pressures have to be different though. I mean, what's the end goal of an academic project? A research paper?
like,
A prototype of something? Maybe I'm wrong.
I think pressure is mostly in the
Help me
mind,
understand it.
right? Like, I mean, this is it. very, very tropey sentence. But if you think about who gets into the echelons of academia, of research specifically, these are like your worst classmates in some sense, by and large, like in terms of being competitive and ambitious. And it doesn't matter what they're chasing, whether it's like, if you go to Google, people are chasing L6, 7, 8, whatever, like it means
Right.
the world to them. Here, there are people like, I want to be the one who invented X, Y, Z. I want the credit for. In startup, I want to, sell the most and make them. It's just like,
So you still have to have that competitive fire and energy inside. Like it exists
yeah,
throughout.
it's like, yeah, exactly. You sort of have to be excellent at in a very noisy environment where you get a lot of feedback and most of it might not make sense for you at this time. Most of it is
Right.
just, lessons from the last 10 years just being retold to you. And some of it is super valuable and can kill your company any moment. So I think that part is not the easiest, but the one that transferred over the best.
Right, right. No, I asked the question because I mean, I've been writing about security for 15 to 20 years. I've been telling stories about companies and founders for all this time, right? And our industry has kind of evolved into this a flow of hype and a lot of marketing nonsense and a lot of drivel and a lot of like just skeevy parts of our business, right? And then you come out of academia with your first principles and your clean approach. Was there a point when you get into the entrepreneur land and you're just like, what did I get myself into here? Because sometimes I feel it as an outsider. I look at all the nonsense that happens around the sales, the sales cycles and all the unethical things that we talk about all the time.
Yeah,
How do you navigate that?
I, you know, I, it's hard because, like, I mean, we are in this phase where we just get to interact with customers who have real problems. They care less about the hype. If you talk to Chris Castaldo at Crossbeam and Brian Castagna at Seven Bridges, and they're just so into the problem, and you just sort of get into it, and you're in the flow of trying to solve the problem. And I don't know, I read this somewhere. Someone had said, I think it was in Obama's book or something, right? Like, it's like when you're having a lot of these like philosophical questions, just sort of like go back to your own personal first principles. Why are you in it for? And just keep
Right.
doing that more and more. And
So that allows you to discount the noise. Like you have your first principles, you're solving significant problems for very, very important people and very, very important data. And going back to the UT
yeah,
mantra of go forth and be great, right? It's like that's how you
exactly,
navigate it.
exactly. And I have a pretty long time horizon. Like when we started if you look at even just this area of information flow, big jumps were made every 10, 15 years. If you look at machine learning, right, like it's a winter from 80s to 2012 roughly until the GPU stuff came around. And you sort of have to keep pushing. And I just see the arc of this stuff is gonna bend towards better privacy. It has to. Like people want it. They keep making GDPR, CCPA. That's like non-engineering people telling our community what they want. They want respect.
Yes, go fix this. Go fix this. With the lessons, I mean, the messages from the regulators are very, very clear about where the energy needs to
Right,
be.
right. And Leah Kistner actually she's at Twitter now. She found the best phrasing that I've seen for this is, she's trying to like build with respect for your users, like for other people in the community, right? Like they could be developers, could be users, service providers. If you sort of keep this mindset, like a lot of these answers is sort of fall out. Building like for SaaS in the customer's cloud, insanely hard. It's going against the grain completely. But it was almost like not a question for us. Right? We almost never thought that. We want this world where, as a user, you have control, as a company, you have control and visibility into what's going on. It's just the right. If I'm a vendor, I want to just come in and give you a service. So if you sort of orient it this way, a lot of this stuff just falls out. Now it's a matter of bending the rest of like playing the detailed
Right, right.
game, and there's fun in that, but you can sort of zoom out.
Are you generally an optimist? Like you sound like you feel like like privacy is something that can be achieved, and I feel like we're heading in the opposite direction as a society.
Yeah, I think like there is a time lag between when you can see the engineering things and the business forces have shifted, like the winds have shifted. Like I think
You think so?
I mean I mean we should collaborate on a document that says why exactly.
That
Yeah,
documents
yeah.
it. Okay.
It's the more the interfaces become open, right? The more you can come in and add your policy to drive how you want the underlying infra to behave and the apps to behave. And now to me, it's like there can always be an option that doesn't respect as much, like, the user's privacy and is, surveillance, doing all sorts of things, but it offers it to you for free, and it's like a town square, right? And there's a space for that. But there's also a space for, like, hey, this stuff is built to be respectful of your privacy, and this is like a more private space for you and your colleagues and your company, so on. And I just think the second option was really hard to build, especially a business around. And now the technical barriers are gone, and now we're sort of figuring out how can we build like functional business around it. So we're trying to be like, hey, we'll improve your security. Turns out that actually improves. If everyone protects data better, it improves people's lives.
All right, I want to end here because there was a lot of as we were discussing this and as I'm listening to this podcast, you mentioned data firewalls and you mentioned access controls and just this access control and authorization, which comes back to zero trust, the whole concept of zero trust. Zero trust is now coming top down from government through executive order, just driving a lot of energy in federal world, which obviously will spin down. Do you get a sense that just let's look at computing as a whole, that the flow to where we are from, let me rephrase the question. Do you get a sense that this zero trust push or this concept, the zero trust concept, is something that fixes things once and for all, or are we always going to have daily breaches?
Well, I mean, so my take about zero trust is it's like a marketing person being very kind of like pushing the edge and maybe even going past the edge a tiny bit, right? But it makes you think like, and what it is really doing, the good part, the best part about it that I like is, it makes you think like, oh, you can't have absolute zero trust, but it is pushing you to think towards least lower privilege. How do you be more intentional about your trusted code base? It's never going to be zero. I mean, TSMC or whoever manufactures your chips, I mean, they're in your trusted code base, right? Whoever built your CPU or whatever, right? Like, so again, but you can, by being more intentional about it, you can reduce it. And right now we are in a spot where we by default just trust it a lot, right? Every application, you install an app, Node.js, boom, like, 10 lines.
Yeah, that's the current state. That's why that's why I'm asking if from when you started doing research and you look at the cybersecurity, current state still feels like a free for all. I mean, it just feels like in 2022 we can't properly answer these questions that you're trying to help CISO solve, and two, even if you can, it's very expensive. The security tax is prohibitive. It's a theme that comes up on my podcast. I don't want to linger on it here too much with you. But do you get a sense that, I go back to the original question, is this even
I
tractable?
think so. I mean, again, it's not about optimism. I think that there are engineering reasons why the more you can, kind of turn your applications into floating blobs of functionality that come into
Right.
things that are more kind of, persistent, like data, right? You can build a layer and service meshes in the computing side. Like they're doing this thing, right? Like, hey, free the business logic from doing infra work. Turns out that infra work can include security. Like we are trying to do like the first step, data firewalls or data containers.
Visibility,
Yeah,
right.
visibility, access control. You can layer in so much more. Turn this into like a moving target defense. Start doing like N versions. One of my students has a paper coming out that says, we can run workloads in 3 versions, like N version programming, and if one blob got hacked, that's fine. Like we'll figure it out and we'll kind of correct for it on the fly. This is just starting. We'll make very, very big dents into kind of reducing the TCB. I feel like there is most reason for having technical reasons for having optimism right now. And it again won't go to zero.
Okay.
Breaches won't go to zero either, but we can improve it a lot, a lot.
Last question. What is next for Symmetry Systems? Where are you now? You're in. Are you in a phase now where the product is completely deployed? You're in growth mode. Where is the company and what's next? What are you excited about?
Yeah, so I think the product will keep getting improved over even like the next 1-2 years. We are at a point where we have been able to drive pretty significant outcomes for Fortune 500 companies or even growth stage startups. We are very excited about our partnership with Accenture. We have another one starting up with Trace3, and they're sort of spreading the gospel and making it kind of, saying, hey, just try this out, try this out for a month, and look, it's in
Right.
your cloud. Takes an hour to set up, right? I want to personally want to make it willful negligence for someone to not try out a data guard. It might be a Symmetry data guard, or it might be XYZ data guard.
Anyone, just the initial benefits you're saying is just so
Yes.
eye-opening. In how soon?
So you can see results within a day, and within a week of activity, you can see
Okay.
how it's being used. Within a day, you can see what's the permissions.
Okay.
Within a week, you sort of see at least first cut how things are being used, and almost always people learn.
And within a month, you could be writing protection rules based on things here and there
Right,
too.
right.
Okay.
So I would say that's what we are most excited about, just scaling this out to a lot more customers that are just about to start up. So um, and growing the team. We went from 7 people in seed stage to now 35 roughly. So
And you're a Series A
yes,
company
yes,
now,
we're
well capitalized and ready
right.
to roll. And there's a baby. That's awesome. All right, Mohit, we're at the 45-minute mark. Professor Tiwari, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Come back anytime when we can continue this discussion, because I feel like we can linger on a lot of these subtopics and have some real fun
Absolutely.
conversations. Thank you for coming on the show. I
Thanks so
appreciate
much,
it.
Ryan. Really appreciate it.